When you're picking your first deck that you want to build towards, you want to make sure that you're not picking a god that's going to cost a lot of money. If you're a free-to-play player, you've probably already noticed how money only trickles in after the weekend. When your packs trickle in on Wednesday and Thursday, and you finally get your gods tokens on Friday. And every week you want to increase your performance of your deck, so you'll need to make minor upgrades until you've got it into a final form of what you want it to be. That means you don't want to pick a deck that's going to take months of savings just for the deck to perform at a base level. So today, I've brought you 3 gods that are going to perform very well for a low investment. The first god I want to talk about is Nature. The overall theme of Nature is randomness equals power. It doesn't have the best matchups with some of the top tier decks, but the matchup's close enough that sometimes you can just squeak it out if you play it well. When you're first starting out, Nature is probably the strongest god you could pick. The cards in the domain are often quite powerful. The only downside to him typically is confusion and randomness, both things that you could technically control if you can shift the battlefield into your favor. Things like the Hunt, that deal 8 damage to 8 random creatures, aren't so random if the enemy's only got 8 points of toughness on the board. The domain features some of the best stats and creatures in the entire game. Many gods don't have the cards to deal with those cards on the turns that you're able to play them. If you play them on curve, you'll run through a lot of their board presence that they've already established. Not to mention, if you're not a fan of just playing big dudes, you can go wide. A lot of their cards generate a lot of value off of having multiple dudes on the table. Cards like Giant Pangolin in the late game just run down your opponent's biggest creature. Nature has some of the best stat to cost ratio creatures in the game. They've got 4 mana 5/5s, 5 mana 6/6s, and occasionally they have 7 mana God Blitz creatures that hit you for 7. They've got many efficiently priced creatures that even deal with your opponent's relics or wake up your creatures. And just in case going big isn't your plan and you like to go wide, they have a lot of cards that generate multiple creatures onto the field or reward you for having multiple creatures. The best part about this domain is that a lot of the valuable creatures that you're going to run are commons. That means the ones that you're going to open, there's a high chance you'll open, and at the same time, the ones you might have to buy aren't going to be expensive. The domain also has a lot of versatility in its god powers. Selina's Mark, for example, deals 1 damage to a random enemy creature and heals you for 1. That's amazing in the aggro matchup, where every point of life can make a huge difference. And when you also need to kill the X1 creature that got left over after combat just to clean things up, Selina's Mark takes care of it. Animal Bond has your back. It'll let you put a 1/2 Confused Badger onto the battlefield, and essentially allow you to make sure that at the end of your turn you have a creature on the table. Even the third power, after its nerf, helps you in combat and trading. If I was building a Nature deck as a free-to-play player right now, I would start by building out commons and cores. Maybe something aggressive with Skeleton Heavy and Field Janissary and Shield Bearer. Capitalize on going big. A lot of gods can't really deal with large creatures, especially in your aggressive matchups like War, which you'll probably run into a lot. Finally, I'd like to talk about upgrading a Nature deck. Some cheap cards you might consider include Giant Pangolin and Celestial Stag. The Giant Pangolin is going to help you with the big creature matchups and mirror matches with stabilizing the board, while Celestial Stag is going to improve your control matchup and your mid-range matchup, where having card advantage is way more important than just getting one guy off the table. Typically, if you can stick a Celestial Stag on the table for multiple turns while triggering it every turn, you're probably going to run away with the game. You have a lot of pressure built into the cards at the base level, and every upgrade you make just builds more and more into that pressure. When you get to the top end and the most expensive portions of the deck, it's no surprise to me that at least one Nature deck typically makes it into the top 10 every week. Even budget lists have a lot of pressure, and every upgrade you make to the deck is going to add more and more pressure. When you get to the final stage of the deck, when you're playing cards like Finian Fruit Bearer, Underrush Boar, and Selena, you're going to really notice the power level spikes heavily. The second god I'd recommend looking at is War. War hosts some of the fastest matches in the game. That means that you can play more matches for your limited amount of time, and gain more core packs from leveling up as a result. The god powers in War are so good that you can typically run a full neutral deck, although you're definitely going to want to play some of the blitz creatures that War has to offer, such as Tavern Brawler or Archangel Bruiser. In fact, War has one of the most powerful powers in its Slayer power, which literally does 2 damage for 2 mana every turn. It's capable of putting a lot of pressure down early game, and its hero power is capable of ending the game by just continually giving you sustainable damage. Ironically, the god built for taking life away from you is also built for giving you life back. It's got some of the only leech creatures in the game, and Ravenous Chimera and Auric Mage. Typically though, the aggressive decks won't be playing those. Those are more reserved for the control variants, which you'll probably want to skip over until you have enough money. Those decks can be pretty expensive. When you decide to build a war deck, you want to make sure that your curve stays consistently low. That way you're constantly putting out pressure at the beginning of the game, and if need be, you can fill in with your Slayer power, or when you get to the end of the game, they're probably low enough that your Slayer power is only a turn or 2 out of killing them. You'll want to pick up cards like Warmonger Smith and Valka's Captain, even eventually picking up Out of Its Misery. That will allow you to have a consistent deck that constantly allows you to control the board. Even though, in the end, you're probably going to end up with a deck that's a lot more expensive than if you played a nature deck, like I'd mentioned before, you're going to be rewarded with much better matchups. The matchups where nature struggles, War typically just races it down. As a domain, War doesn't care at all about what your opponent's plans are. It just cares about taking their face out. Even though the overall theme of War is aggression, there's 2 different ways that you can build the deck. You can go with the hyper-aggressive red deck win strategy, where you try to reduce their life total as quickly as possible, or you can play the control variant, which takes advantage of some early game cards to try and put some pressure on your opponent, while waiting to the late game to fully take over the game. The note I would make for that control list, however, is that a lot of the cards are very expensive. War is yet another god that consistently puts up solid results every weekend ranked. And the aggressive lists typically don't have a lot you need to make them reach their full potential. They're not a deck that plays Demogorgons or a ton of legendaries, although you probably do want to pick up an Auto Valka's Herald. The domain's got a lot of power that's going to carry you through weekend ranked and help you boost those results so you can get more packs and build your collection faster. The last domain I want to talk about is Magic. If you're a player on a budget, Magic will give you your introduction to control gameplay. And although it can be built as a burn deck, it does function primarily as control. Even their burn list is more of a tempo list that just buys time until you can supercharge and blow their face off with a flurry of spells. Do you love to blow stuff up? So does Mage. Mage gets cards like Illuminate, Starshard Bolt, and Wyrm Breath that completely decimate your opponent's creatures. And when it comes to board wipes, you get Crystal Rain and Inferno, 2 really powerful spells that will literally decimate your opponent's entire side of the field. Magic is very good at 1-for-1ing your opponent, but what it's even better at is 2-for-1ing and taking them to Value Town. As a result, Magic's cards are built around helping you make decisions and giving you the opportunity to make different decisions. There's a lot of this or that in the deck. For example, Versatile Conjuration. It's a 3-mana spell that lets you either draw a card, protect your god, or deal 3 to a creature. It's a lot of decision making to make. In fact, Magic has so many options to deal with things, it can even efficiently deal with cards like Polyhymnia that other domains struggle to get off the table. If I was going to build a Magic deck, I'd want to make sure that I had enough removal to deal with creatures that my opponent's playing, while also having big threats to put down when they can't deal with it. When building the budget control list, you want to make sure that you have plenty of single target removal. That way you complement your board wipes and you can clean up after a board wipe. You want to make sure that you have tons of card advantage in the deck as well, whether that's drawing cards or generating spells out of nowhere. Finally, you just want to clog up the board after that. Put creatures with frontline out that are going to live for a decent amount of time, or that are going to power up your single target removal. If I was going to upgrade a Magic deck, I would pick up cards like Miraculous Familiar and All-Seeing Spire for card advantage, as well as picking up Wall of Lightning. Wall of Lightning is a thick frontline character that will help boost your spell power and help you get extra damage out of those board wipes. Magic even has a really strong power in Mage Bolt that allows you to pretty much kill any X1 or to set up your board wipes if your opponent is playing wonky 2/3s or 5/6s without hurting your god. Not to mention the bonus value in your hero power that lets you effectively negate ward or protected for literally 2 mana. I'd say if you're not a big fan of randomness or aggression, give Mage a try. Pound for pound, it's got a lot of value in every card that it plays. And most importantly, you're going to have full control over those cards. Whichever god you choose, you can make budget lists of pretty much any deck, but the 3 gods I've listed here show a lot of consistency, and the hero powers give them a lot of staying power in any kind of meta, which means as you tune the deck and master the deck, your weekend rank's going to improve. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Gods Unchained content.